Houston, we have a problem. A major problem, mind you, that needs to be addressed. Some say that ignorance is bliss, but I don't think this is the case. I recorded that particular run with the Link ECU I had, just to see what the oil pressures were doing. So here I've circled and marked out two significant points on the graph. Where it's circled there is the first major oil pressure drop, which is, I believe, surge happening around the oil pickup. And it drops down to about 56 psi, when normally I run around, say, 90 psi as such. So this might not sound like a big deal, but when you're pushing out big power, I think I'm 380 kilowatts at the wheels, that load's got to go somewhere, and I'm using factory, basically standard long block. And so here the second situation is, which is a little bit more strung out and sort of a bit more inconsistent, I believe, is the oil pickups not receiving oil in the pan due to starvation, and I think this is oil getting stuck in the head, which is a common RB issue. So obviously I'm not going to run the car anytime soon if the oil pressure is going to do that, especially considering this is a factory long block. However, I actually already have a sump in there, a baffle one made, but it just isn't ideal. It's not up to task. It's a bit, the side walls are too far away from the pickup, and so then it's still sloshing around. Also, I have AccuSump, and actually that's stopping. You'll see that sort of trough that come down, and I can actually see that it's actually stopping it going all the way down. So it is working, but it's sort of a band-aid fix. I want a consistent oil pressure. It maybe bounces a little bit all the way through. So how am I going to fix this? So I think there's three ways to go about this. The first one is improve the baffle and trapdoor design around in the sump, making that taller and closer to the pickup as possible. The second is improve the oil pickup design itself with the factory R32 oil pickup. It doesn't have a very good open bell mouth on the end of it. And the third thing is maybe there's a way I can try and bring oil to the front of the engine towards the oil pickup. So that third point I mentioned about bringing oil from the back of the motor to the front has come about because I watched a video from, in America they have a drift week, and one of the guys there, the host, was talking about how all the 2Js with front mounted sumps, as in the sump in front of the cross member versus rear mounted behind, would always run big end bearings. And so what I'm thinking is happening with drifting is because you're constantly accelerating forward, all the oil is getting pushed back because you're constantly accelerating forward. And so then it favors having the major bowl of the sump to the rear of the motor. And so that's got me thinking, I wonder if I could make a way to pull oil from the back and bring oil forward towards the pickup, kind of like a poor man's dry sump. And so what I've done is I've actually measured the angle of the block going down, and I think it's something around like 3 degrees, 2.5 degrees down. And I also measured on the sump, and although the sump does slope like sort of down towards the oil pickup, overall the net angle is down. So which it means it's not only promoting oil to sit the back of it, the motor, it's also not promoting oil come forward. And so I'm going to jump into the car and see if we can prove that. I thought rather than showing you the angles of the sump, angle sloping down, what I could do is if I unscrew this spare AN port I've got here, I could put an inspection camera in and basically prove to myself that there's an oil level at the back of the sump due to the angle of the engine going downwards, which will sort of help prove, I guess, what I'm trying to do, which is potentially put this drain in the back. So let's just fire this up. Here you can see this is the it's a biggie in then, number 6, and then down the bottom here
This is the oil level.
So what does this mean? So you can see marked in red is the oil level at the back of the sump in the stationary position, which I've proved with the camera. So what I think is happening is when we accelerate forward, that oil is going to push back more like a wave than back and not flow back towards the front of the pickup. And also I suspect it's actually interfering with the drainage at the back of the head. And so I'm thinking I have a strategy to try and bring oil forward. The plan is I've already mocked up a bit of cardboard with trial and error and kind of created something like this, and this will sit on the back of the sump and basically act as a bit of a collection point. And so then what I could do is the oil could pull at the back, and then it's going to send over a way to potentially send oil forward to the front of the sump, which I think could work quite well. So here we have the standard RB rear drive sump from Racefab. You can see here it's a really good design where it's got really good tight box in the middle with swing hinge gates, which basically stops the oil from sloshing from one side to the other. And so yeah, really good design, and I just wanted to see if I can take it a step further. So here you can see the two RB oil pickups for a rear drive Skyline, and so you can really see the difference between the factory run's quite short versus the one that Racefab supplies, which is longer and further forward and deeper down. And this basically puts the oil pickup in the center of the kind of the box there, and so promotes direction, I guess G-force oil surge from all directions, where the factory RB1 sits really far back in the sort of the box of the pan, and it only really promotes from a forward acceleration. So here I'm demonstrating kind of the floor with the rear drive oil pickup in comparison to the four drive blocks or GDR. And if you had a choice to go back, I definitely would prefer to have the four drive block, just because the oil pickup sits so much further back where it mounts the block. And what happens is you have to kind of have this gooseneck to try and protrude forward into the sort of the main box of the sump. And the problem is that because of that design, there's basically you have to create a sort of a hole or break in the box at the rear part of it, and you can see it right here. And so I want to basically have this fully enclosed, this box section, to stop oil oozing back and get pushed back under acceleration. And so I'm going to have to try and be quite creative and very close with some of the fitments and see if I can get that boxed up properly, and also be able to put this oil pickup through, which is going to be very tricky for when assembling it, when it's on the motor with things like the crank pulley and things being in the way, but it's something I'm going to try and do. I stenciled this on the block, did a quick check, 2-minute print or some shit, and then there we go, one oil pickup locator. So with this guide that I made, I can now bolt it to the sump and then bolt the oil pickup to that guide or flange, and then I know exactly where the oil pickup's going to sit. Now I can basically see whether it's viable if I can put it like a rear wall on the back of it and still make it fit. It's going to be tight, but I think it's going to work. Basically now the plan is to get a new sump made up with those changes I had in mind, and basically wait until it comes back and then go from there. So I'm freaking super stoked to sort of see what it's going to look like. Yeah.